Ethan's hand hovered over the ignition, but he couldn't pull himself to start the engine. The old man didn't beg, didn't hold a sign, didn't even look up. He simply sat there, arms wrapped around himself, as if trying to hold together whatever pieces of life still remained. Ethan swallowed hard. He didn't have enough. He never had enough. Between double shifts, overdue bills, and Lily's school payments, life had become a constant negotiation with hunger and exhaustion. And yet, something about the trembling in the man's hands, barely visible under the dull streetlight, wouldn't let him drive away. He exhaled shakily, grabbed the paper bag, and stepped into the rain. "Sir," Ethan said softly as he approached.
This will help.
The elder's head lifted.
Take care
His
of yourself.
eyes, pale, tired, but strangely gentle, met Ethan's with quiet confusion. "Evening," the old man murmured. "Are you hungry?" Ethan asked. The man hesitated, as if embarrassed by the answer. I could eat." Ethan set the bag beside him. "It's not much, but it's warm." The old man blinked slowly, emotion welling behind his eyes. "Why give it to me? You look like you need it yourself." He wasn't wrong. Ethan's clothes clung damply to him. His shoes nearly worn through. Dark circles etched under his eyes from sleepless nights. But he forced a small smile. "I'll manage," he whispered. "Everyone deserves to feel human, at least for one meal." The elder stared at him for a long moment, as if studying the shape of Ethan's heart rather than the words he spoke. "You're a good man," the old man said quietly. "Not many stop anymore." Ethan shrugged. Maybe they're scared, or tired, or maybe they just don't see. Seconds passed in the drizzle, quiet but heavy. The old man's frail fingers brushed the paper bag. He opened it slowly, like he was afraid the warmth might escape. "I don't know your name," he said, voice trembling as he lifted the sandwich. "But thank you.
Here, this will
I
help.
can't remember the last time someone cared."
Take care of yourself.
Ethan felt something twist inside him. "I'm Ethan." The old man nodded. "I'm Samuel." He took a small bite, eyes closing briefly in gratitude. Ethan turned slightly, glancing at the clock on his phone. Lily would be waiting by the window. Tiny hands pressed the glass the way she always did when he worked late. But Way looked back at Samuel, sitting alone in the rain, chewing slowly as though savoring each second of warmth. Ethan knew that staying a little longer wasn't the wrong choice. A gust of wind blew through, stirring loose newspapers across the sidewalk. Samuel shivered. Ethan instinctively took off his jacket, thin but dry, and draped it over the man's shoulders. Samuel's eyes widened. No, son, you'll freeze." "I can warm up at home," Ethan insisted softly. Samuel's lips trembled, not from the cold this time, but from something deeper. "Why?" he whispered. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" Ethan looked at him, really looked, and saw not a homeless man, but someone who had lived a life full of stories he'd never heard. Someone who'd once been young, hopeful, proud. Someone who could have been anyone, even Ethan, given the wrong twist of fate. Because everyone deserves a chance to feel seen,
"Here,
he
this
said.
will help."
Samuel lowered his head as if absorbing the words directly into his bones. "If you were in Ethan's shoes right now, what would you have done? Be honest. Say it in the comments. And if you can't find the right words, just tap like to show that compassion still matters." Ethan's phone buzzed with a message from Lily's teacher, a reminder about tomorrow's school breakfast program, the one he was too embarrassed to admit Lily needed. He pocketed the phone quickly and turned back to Samuel. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" Ethan asked. Samuel shook his head. "Shelters are full. They turn me away." Ethan's chest tightened. "I know a community center a few blocks down," Ethan said.
"Here, this will help.
"Maybe they've got space. I can walk you there." Samuel looked at him, eyes shining with something like disbelief. "You do that for me?" Ethan nodded. "I'd hope someone would do the same for my daughter if she were alone someday." Samuel froze. The mention of a child seemed to soften something inside him. "You have a daughter?" "Lily. She's 8, Ethan replied, a quiet warmth threading into his tone. Samuel's gaze softened further. "You're raising her alone?" Ethan hesitated. No bitterness, no self-pity, just tired truth. "Yeah, just me and her now." Samuel opened his mouth to respond, but emotion stole his voice. He looked down,
Take care of
gripping
yourself.
Ethan's jacket tightly, as if anchoring himself to the kindness he had just been shown. And in that dim, rainy corner of the city, something invisible shifted. Not loud, not grand, just two lives briefly intertwining in the soft glow of shared humanity. Ethan extended a hand to help Samuel stand, and as the old man's trembling fingers reached for him, the night air held its breath. He didn't know that this single gesture would unravel a truth far larger than hunger or rain. Samuel's grip tightened around Ethan's hand as he slowly rose the curve, legs wobbling beneath him like branches that endured too many storms.
Here, this will help.
Ethan steadied him gently,
Take care
keeping
of yourself.
one arm around the old man's back until Samuel found enough balance to stand on his own. The drizzle had thickened into a soft, steady rain, the kind that blurred streetlights into glowing halos. Cars hissed past on wet asphalt, their windows reflecting fragments of two strangers walking side by side. "Easy," Ethan murmured. Samuel nodded, breath shallow. "Haven't stood this long in a while. Body doesn't listen like it used to." Ethan slowed his pace to match Samuel's. The night air carried the faint scent of wet earth and distant bakery ovens closing for the day. Their footsteps moved in sync, slow but deliberate. "You said your daughter's 8?" Samuel asked, voice a little stronger now. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "She loves art. Draws on anything she can find, cereal boxes, receipts, even my work notes." Samuel chuckled softly, the sound brittle yet warm. Children create their own worlds. Maybe they do it because ours is too heavy. Ethan smiled faintly. Maybe. They reached the end of the block, the crosswalk glowing red. While they waited, Samuel's gaze drifted toward the traffic, eyes distant, as if catching pieces of memories only he could see. "You remind me of someone I once knew," Samuel murmured. "A father who carried too much alone." Ethan didn't pry. There was something fragile about those words, something that felt like touching a bruise. The walk signal turned white, and they stepped forward. Halfway across the street, Samuel stumbled. Ethan caught him quickly, gripping his arm. "You okay?" "Just tired," Samuel whispered. "But I'll make it." Ethan didn't let go until they reached the opposite sidewalk. A few more turns, and the glowing windows of the community center came into view, the warm light spilling onto the pavement. Looked like hope made visible. But as they approached, a woman in a reflective vest stepped outside, locking the glass door behind her. Ethan's stomach sank. "Excuse me," he called out, guiding Samuel closer. "Do you have space for one more night?" The woman's sympathetic eyes told the answer before her mouth did. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "We filled the last bed an hour ago." The storm drove more people in than usual. Samuel's shoulders slumped. Ethan felt the subtle collapse beside him. "Is there a mat? Even a chair?" Ethan pressed. She shook her head. "Fire code won't allow extras." "I wish I could help." Samuel whispered, "It's all right. I'll manage." But Ethan could hear the tremor in the old man's voice. Exhaustion, hunger, cold. He looked at the woman. "Is there anywhere else?" "Shelter on 9th, but that's a long walk in this weather. They might be full too." Samuel swayed slightly. Ethan steadied him again. "Thank you," Ethan said, though disappointment pressed heavy in his chest. As the woman walked away, Samuel let out a soft breath. "You've done enough, son. More than enough. I'll find a corner to wait out the night." Ethan stared at him. "I can't leave you out here." Samuel lifted his face just enough for the rain to wash over the creases of time. "You have a child waiting. She needs you more than an old man does." But Ethan shook his head. "Lily would tell me to help you first." The old man blinked rapidly, as if the sentence itself was too kind to hold. "Your daughter, she must be something special." Ethan smiled weakly. "She is." They stood quietly under the awning of the community center, the rain drumming a steady rhythm above them. Ethan felt the weight of decision building inside him, one he wasn't sure he could afford, but one he also knew he couldn't walk away from. He took a breath. "Look, I don't have much space, and my place isn't fancy, but it's warm and dry. You can rest there tonight." Samuel's head jerked upward, eyes wide with disbelief. "No, I can't let you do that. I'd be a burden." "You're not," Ethan said softly. Just someone who needs a safe night. Samuel's lips trembled. Why are you this kind? Ethan didn't answer immediately. A car passed, its tires slicing through puddles. Far away, a siren echoed. Then Ethan spoke, voice low, because I know what it feels like when no one helps. For a moment, the old man simply stared at him, as if Ethan had peeled open a memory Samuel had long buried. His eyes glistened with something deeper than gratitude, something almost like grief. Have you ever had someone show up for you when no one else did? Ethan asked quietly, almost to himself. If you have, say yes in the comments and tell me their name. Maybe gratitude can travel further than we think. The rain eased to a mist as they began walking back toward Ethan's car. Samuel clutched the jacket tighter, leaning slightly into Ethan for support. Every few steps, he cleared his throat as if wanting to say something. But the words kept dissolving before they reached the air. When they reached the car, Ethan opened the passenger door. But before Samuel climbed in, he gently placed a hand on Ethan's sleeve. You don't know how much this means, Samuel whispered. One day, I pray I can repay this. Ethan smiled softly. Just rest tonight. That's enough. Samuel nodded and carefully lowered himself into the seat. As Ethan walked around to the driver's side, he couldn't shake the feeling that this night, this simple choice, was about to ripple far beyond anything he imagined. He started the engine. Warm air filled the car. The old man closed his eyes, relief washing over him like a fragile exhale. But Ethan didn't know this was only the beginning. The hum of the heater filled the small sedan as they pulled away from the curb. Raindrops trailed across the windshield like tired travelers searching for someplace warm to land. Samuel kept his gaze forward, hands folded neatly in his lap, as though afraid to disturb anything in the car. Ethan adjusted the rear-view mirror out of habit, and for a brief moment, he caught Samuel's reflection, eyes closed, breathing uneven, shoulders slumped beneath the weight of years he'd never spoken aloud. You can sleep if you want, Ethan said gently. Samuel opened his eyes, slow and deliberate. Haven't had a safe place to sleep in a long time. Tonight you do, Ethan replied. They drove through the quiet streets, passing shuttered shops and glowing apartment windows that shimmered like small pockets of life. With each block, Samuel's body seemed to relax, not fully, but enough for Ethan to sense the unraveling of a constant tension. After a few minutes, Samuel spoke again. How long has it been just you and your daughter? Ethan's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. 3 years. Her mom left when Lily was 5. She said life felt too heavy. I guess she thought running would make it lighter. Samuel nodded slowly. People run when they don't know how to stay. Yeah, Ethan murmured. I just wish Lily didn't have to learn that so young. The car rolled to a stop at a red light. Outside, a bus rumbled past, sending a spray of water across the pavement. Ethan felt Samuel watching him with an expression he couldn't quite decipher. Sympathy, maybe, or something deeper. You've done well, you know, Samuel said quietly. Raising a child alone, that takes a special kind of strength. Ethan let out a soft breath that felt almost like a confession. Some days I feel like I'm failing her. Samuel shook his head. No, you're choosing love every day. That's not failure, son. That's survival. The light turned green, and they continued through the intersection. Silence settled again, but it was gentler this time, like a blanket rather than a wall. As they neared Ethan's neighborhood, modest apartment blocks lined with hedges and dim porch lights, Samuel leaned forward, studying the surroundings as though they meant something more than he could put into words. You live here? He asked softly. Yeah, Ethan said. It's small, but it's home. When they pulled into the lot, Ethan noticed the living room light glowing through blinds of his unit. Lily was probably awake, drawing or waiting with the patience only children and old souls possessed. He parked the car and turned to Samuel. Take your time getting out. I'll help you. Samuel nodded, swallowing as though the simple act of being offered help stirred something fragile inside him. Outside, the rain had faded into a thin mist that clung to their clothes but no longer stung their skin. Ethan guided Samuel toward the stairwell, supporting him up the steps one slow movement at a time. What will your daughter think of me? Samuel asked softly, breath unsteady. Ethan smiled. She'll probably offer you a drawing before she says hello. At the top of the stairs, Ethan unlocked the door. Soft yellow light spilled out, carrying the faint smell of crayons and the warmth of a home held together by love and struggle. Before they crossed the threshold, Ethan hesitated, something tugging at him. Samuel, can I ask something? Of course. What happened? How did you end up? Ethan trailed off, unsure he was trespassing into wounds too deep to touch. Samuel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked down at his trembling hands, running a thumb across a deep scar near his palm. Life can fall apart quietly, he whispered, one piece at a time. And by the time you realize you're drowning, it's already too late. Ethan's heart tightened. You don't have to tell me tonight. Samuel lifted his gaze. Maybe someday. They stepped inside. The apartment was small, one couch, one table, a little shelf filled with Lily's drawings. And right there on the carpet, Lily sat cross-legged with a sketchbook, her ponytail lopsided, her eyes instantly lighting up when she saw Ethan. Daddy, she chirped. Ethan's chest warmed as she ran into his arms. He lifted her, hugging her tightly. Then Lily noticed the old man behind him. She tilted her head. Hi. Samuel blinked, startled by her openness. Hello, little one. This is Mr. Samuel, Ethan said softly. He's staying with us tonight. Lily nodded, as though this were the most natural thing in the world. Do you want a blanket? I have an extra fluffy one. Samuel's voice wavered. I would like that very much. Lily scampered off toward her room. Samuel watched her go, his eyes shimmering with an expression Ethan recognized. The way grief sometimes softened when touched with innocence. Ethan gestured toward the couch. Sit. Rest. I'll get you some water. Samuel lowered himself carefully, adjusting Ethan's jacket, still wrapped around his shoulders. Your daughter, she's pure kindness. She gets it from her mom, Ethan said instinctively, then paused, correcting softly. From somewhere better than either of us. Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Right below so others remember that humanity still lives. Your story might be the light someone needs tonight. Samuel's fingers curled into the blanket Lily brought him, his posture slowly easing as warmth seeped in. Ethan watched him settle, unaware that Samuel's eyes were subtly studying every detail. The apartment, the drawings, the signs of a life held together with struggle and tenderness. Something unspoken passed through the room, a tension made of secrets and fate, and a quiet sense that they were standing near the edge of truth that had been waiting years to surface. And it would surface soon. Lily placed a fluffy blanket gently across Samuel's lap, smoothing it with small, careful hands the way she did with her stuffed animals. Samuel watched her in awe, as though he couldn't quite understand why someone so young would treat him with such tenderness. There, she said proudly. It's warm, right? Samuel nodded, voice barely above a whisper. Warmer than anything I felt in a long time. Ethan returned with a glass of water and set it on the table beside him. The old man reached for it slowly, fingers shaking. Ethan pretended not to notice, giving him the dignity of silence. Lily plopped onto the carpet with her markers, humming as she drew. The soft strokes of color felt like background music to the room's fragile calm. After a few minutes, Samuel cleared his throat. This place, it feels like a memory. Ethan raised an eyebrow. How so? Samuel smiled faintly. A small home, a child's drawings on the walls, a father trying his best. It reminds me of before life changed. Ethan sat across from him, elbows on his knees. You had a family? Samuel took a slow sip of water, eyes dropping to the floor. Yes, once. A wife who loved too hard. A son who didn't understand how much I loved him. I worked too much. Thought money could buy time, but time doesn't wait. Lily paused her drawing, listening with the quiet curiosity only children have. Ethan leaned forward. What happened? Samuel's lips trembled. My wife passed. My son blamed me. Said I chose wealth over them. And maybe he wasn't wrong. The room fell still. Even Lily's humming faded. I tried to make amends, Samuel whispered. But years slipped away. My health declined. My mind. Well, some days I forget things I shouldn't. And when the money was gone, so were the people who said they cared. Ethan felt a heaviness in his chest. The kind that wasn't his own, but felt familiar anyway. "I'm sorry," he said softly. Samuel lifted his gaze, meeting Ethan's eyes with a sad smile. "I don't tell this to many people. Hard to trust when you've been abandoned by your own blood." Ethan swallowed. Not everyone walks away. Samuel studied him for a long moment, something thoughtful stirring behind his weary expression. "You're different, Ethan. You give even when you have nothing to spare." Ethan shrugged as though wearing humility, like a jacket too big for him. "I just try to be the person I needed when life felt impossible." Lily crawled closer, holding up a drawing. "Look, I made this for you." Samuel took the paper with trembling hands. It was a simple crayon drawing. 3 figures holding hands under a bright yellow sun. One tall figure, one small figure, and an older one with a beard. Is this me?" Samuel asked, voice cracking. Lily nodded brightly. "Yep. Daddy says when someone feels alone, we're supposed to make them feel safe. So I drew you with us." Samuel pressed the drawing to his chest. For a moment, his face crumpled, the kind of expression a person makes when a wound they thought had closed suddenly fills with warmth instead of pain. "Thank you," he whispered. "Little one, thank you." Ethan cleared his throat gently. "Lily, why don't you get ready for bed? I'll tuck you in soon." She nodded and scampered off, leaving her markers scattered like colorful footprints behind her. When she was out of sight, Samuel wiped at his eyes. "Your daughter has a gift, not just with drawings, with people." Ethan nodded. "She reminds me every day why I keep trying." Samuel looked toward her closed bedroom door, his expression far away. "Have you ever wondered how different life might be if someone stepped in at the right moment, before everything fell apart?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Every day." Samuel leaned back on the couch, exhaling deeply. "I used to think the world had forgotten kindness. But tonight, you've made me question that. You and your daughter." A silence settled. But this one was warm, like 2 candles flickering in the same room. "Have you ever had someone lift you up when you were too tired to stand on your own? If so, share their name below. Maybe your words will remind someone that compassion still exists." Ethan stood and began tidying the markers Lily left behind. His movements were quiet, thoughtful. Samuel watched him, his eyes narrowing slightly, not in suspicion, but in recognition, as though some detail about Ethan lingered on the edge of an old memory. "You know," Samuel said softly, "you remind me of my son when he was younger." Ethan glanced up. Yes, Samuel murmured. "He had your eyes. Kind, but sad in corners, like he carried someone else's weight." Ethan wasn't sure how to respond. "Do you still think about him?" he asked gently. "Every day," Samuel whispered. "He pushed me away, but I never stopped loving him." Outside, the rain had stopped completely. The world felt paused, as though waiting for something important to surface. Samuel's gaze drifted again to Ethan's face, studying, comparing, remembering. Something unspoken tightened between them, fragile and strange. Ethan didn't notice the way Samuel's breath caught, or the way his hand hovered, as if reaching for a truth he wasn't ready to touch. But that truth was moving closer. Samuel's gaze lingered on Ethan longer than usual, his eyes narrow in ways someone's do when the past suddenly brushes against the present. Ethan didn't notice. He was too busy straightening the living room, collecting Lily's crayons into a cup. But Samuel sat very still, breath shallow, as though some invisible hand had placed an old photograph in front of him. "Ethan," Samuel said softly. "Yeah," Ethan replied without looking up. "Your last name, what is it?" Ethan paused, a crayon in his hand. "Carter. Ethan Carter." The room seemed to shift. Samuel's fingers froze on the edge of the blanket. For a moment, he didn't breathe. He didn't blink. "Carter," he whispered, as if tasting the name, testing against memories that had grown dusty with years of silence. "Yes," Ethan said gently, sensing the change in Samuel's tone. "Is something wrong?" Samuel's throat bobbed. His eyes darted to Lily's drawings on the wall, childish suns and hearts and smiling faces. and then back to Ethan. That was my wife's last name before we married. Samuel said quietly. Carter. Ethan stopped moving entirely. He looked up confused. Really? My son, Samuel murmured, voice cracking. He took her last name when he left. Said he didn't want anything of mine anymore. Silence thickened between them like rising fog. Ethan took a slow step closer. What was your son's name? Samuel swallowed hard. Michael. Michael Carter. Ethan's breath hitched. His heart thudded once. Heavy, disbelieving. My father's name was Michael Carter. Ethan whispered. The world stopped. The hum of the heater. The ticking of the clock. Even the faint sound of Lily brushing her teeth behind her cracked bedroom door. Everything froze. Samuel stared at him, eyes widening with dawning horror and hope all tangled together. Your father? Ethan nodded slowly, sinking into the nearest chair as if his legs couldn't hold him anymore. He died when I was 14. He never talked about his parents, only said they were gone. Samuel's hand flew to his mouth. His entire body shook. The blanket slid off his lap. No, he choked out. Michael, my boy. Ethan's voice trembled. Are you saying you're my grandfather? A sound escaped Samuel, a broken, strangled sob that seemed to rise from years of guilt buried deep inside him. I lost him, Samuel whispered. I lost my son. I thought he hated me. I thought he didn't want me anymore. I looked for him, but by the time I found an address, he had already moved. And then my health fell apart. I couldn't travel, couldn't search. He pressed his palms to his eyes, shoulders shaking. I never stopped loving him, he whispered. Not for one single day. Ethan stared at him, mind spinning. His entire life, the loneliness, the unanswered questions, the missing pieces, all twisted into a new shape he didn't know how to hold. My father never said you were alive, Ethan said quietly. He told me he grew up without parents. He told me there was no one. Samuel's face crumpled. He said those things because I failed him. I worked too much. I wasn't there when he needed me. And when your grandmother died, we broke. I broke. By the time I realized what mattered, I had already shattered everything. Ethan felt something sharp inside him. Grief for a man he'd never known, anger for what his father endured, and a strange, trembling ache for the old man sitting in front of him. Why didn't you try harder? Ethan asked, voice barely audible. Samuel bowed his head. I did. I promise you I did. But life doesn't always give us a chance to fix what we've ruined. Tears slipped down Samuel's cheeks. And now I meet you like this. An old man on a curb, surviving off scraps. And you, my grandson, you fed me your last meal. Ethan pressed a shaking hand to his forehead, overwhelmed. This is too much, he whispered. I don't know what to feel. Samuel nodded as though he deserved nothing less. You have every right to feel anything. Anger, confusion, disbelief. But please, his voice cracked, please don't hate me like your father did. I don't think my heart could bear it twice. The room pulsed with emotion. Old wounds, new truths. The fragile thread connecting them. If that moment struck a deep place in you, leave a red heart. Sometimes a single symbol speaks the emotions we struggle to name. Samuel reached for Ethan's hand, not to pull him close, but to offer something trembling and hopeful. Ethan, he whispered, I never thought I'd have a second chance. Not with family. Not with anyone. Ethan didn't pull away, but he didn't move closer either. I don't know what this means. Ethan breathed. Samuel nodded. Neither do I. But maybe we can start with tonight. Behind the door, Lily peeked out, tiny brows furrowed. Daddy? Why are you sad? Ethan quickly wiped his eyes. Come here, sweetheart. She patted out, hugged him tightly, then turned to Samuel, sensing the heaviness in the air. The old man forced a shaky smile. It's okay, little one. Some truths take time to settle. But none of them knew this truth would reshape all of their lives. Lily climbed into Ethan's lap, tiny fingers brushing the tears he hadn't realized were still on his cheeks. She looked back and forth between him and Samuel, sensing something enormous had shifted in the room. Something she couldn't name, but felt in the trembling silence. "Daddy," she whispered. "Did something bad happen?" Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Not bad, sweetheart. Just big." Her eyes flicked to Samuel, who sat frozen on the couch, wringing the blanket between his hands. "Is Mr. Samuel okay?" she asked. Samuel tried to smile, but failed. "I'm trying, little one." Ethan helped Lily down. "Go wash up. I'll tuck you in soon." She hesitated, then walked toward her room slowly, glancing over her shoulder, as if she knew something fragile was unfolding and didn't want to let out her sight. When her door closed, Ethan turned back to Samuel. The old man looked smaller somehow, shoulders curved inward, as though the truth had drained the last of his strength. "I don't even know where to begin," Ethan said quietly. "You don't have to decide anything tonight," Samuel murmured, eyes glistening. "If you want me gone by morning, I'll go without complaint." Ethan flinched. "That's not what I said." "I know," Samuel whispered, "but it's what I expect. I've lived long enough to understand when I've broken something beyond repair." Ethan stepped closer, arms folded as though protecting the space between them. "You're not the only one who's hurt here," Ethan said, voice trembling. "I grew up believing we had no family, that my father had nobody. I thought that emptiness came from losing loved ones, not being abandoned by them." Samuel shut his eyes, pain rippling across his face. "I did abandon him," he whispered. "Not physically, but emotionally. I thought providing money was enough. I thought success would make up for my absence. But he didn't need a wealthy father. He needed a present one." Ethan nodded slowly. "And when he left?" "I searched," Samuel said. "But by then, grief had clouded my mind. And when my health declined, I lost the ability to travel far. I didn't stop loving him. I just lost my strength before I found him." The heater hummed, filling the heavy gap between their words. Ethan sank into the armchair across from him. "If my father were alive, I don't know how he'd feel about you now." Samuel's eyes softened with a heartbreak that seemed to stretch across decades. "I know exactly how he'd feel. He'd be angry, resentful, and rightfully so." "And what about me?" Ethan murmured. Samuel swallowed hard. "You have every right to feel the same. I wouldn't blame you if you did. But please don't carry your father's pain as your own. Let it rest with me where it belongs." Ethan looked down at his hands, tired, calloused, stained with years of hard work. "Do you know how many nights I wish for a family?" he whispered. "For someone to tell me I wasn't alone raising my daughter? For someone to check in on us? I never imagined that person still existed." Samuel's breath trembled. "I would have given anything to know you, even just a picture of you growing up. I missed every birthday, every milestone, every moment your father should have shared with me. I failed him, and I failed you without even knowing your name." Ethan looked at him, truly looked, at the regret carved into Samuel's face, at the fragile hope flickering behind tired eyes. There was no pretending, no erasing, no quick healing, only truth, raw and aching. "Be honest. Could you forgive someone who broke your heart before you even knew them? Type forgive if you could, or never, if it would be too much to bear." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. "I don't know what forgiveness looks like yet, but I don't want to make decisions from anger." Samuel nodded slowly. "Thank you for even considering that." "You're my grandfather," Ethan whispered. The words felt strange, too heavy to hold. "I don't know what that means yet, but it's not nothing." Samuel's face crumpled. "Hearing you say that, it's more than I deserve." Ethan shook his head gently. "Maybe, maybe not, but the truth is here now. We can't ignore it." Samuel hesitated before speaking again. "I need to tell you something else," he said. "Something important." Ethan leaned back, bracing himself. "What is it?" Samuel inhaled shakily. "Before my mind started slipping, before everything fell apart, I made arrangements for my estate. A fund, savings, investments. They were meant for my family. And even if my son refused them, even if he never came back, it was meant for whoever came after him." Ethan stared. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Samuel said, voice firm despite the tremor, everything I saved, everything I built, It belongs to you and Lily. You're my blood, my legacy. Ethan froze. The room seemed to tilt. I don't want your money, he said reflexively. Samuel nodded. I know. That's why you're the only one I trust to receive it. Ethan's heart pounded as he tried to process the revelation. Samuel reached out, placing a trembling hand on the coffee table between them. Not touching Ethan, but offering something fragile and open. I'm not asking you to accept me as family tonight, he whispered. I'm asking you to let this truth exist. And maybe let your heart choose what to do with it in time. Ethan swallowed hard. I need to think. Take all the time you need, Samuel said, eyes soft. I'm not going anywhere tonight. Neither spoke for a long moment, but the air between them had changed. Not healed, but cracked open just enough for light to enter. The apartment had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that follows confessions too heavy for the walls to hold. Ethan leaned back in the armchair, rubbing the bridge of his nose as the weight of everything pressed down on him. Across from him, Samuel sat still, hands folded, eyes lowered the way someone does when they're afraid their presence alone might shatter something delicate. In the hallway, Lily's soft humming drifted to the cracked door of her bedroom, a small reminder of innocence, of gentler worlds. Ethan finally exhaled. Samuel, I need you to understand something. Samuel lifted his gaze, fragile hope flickering. I'm not angry at you, Ethan said slowly, each word chosen with care. I'm confused. Hurt, maybe. Overwhelmed for sure. But I don't hate you. I don't think I could. Samuel's breath quivered, and he nodded. Thank you. Even hearing that much, it's more grace than I expected. Ethan shook his head. I'm not giving you grace. I'm being honest. If I push you away now, I'm just repeating the same pain my father carried all those years. And I don't want that for Lily. At the mention of her name, Samuel's expression softened. She deserves a family that feels whole. Ethan swallowed. We all do. A gentle silence settled, warm this time, not suffocating. For the first time since Samuel revealed the truth, Ethan felt something inside him loosen. Maybe not forgiveness, not yet, but an opening, a possibility. Then Samuel coughed, soft at first, then sharp, rattling. Ethan immediately moved closer. You okay? Samuel held up a trembling hand. Just old lungs. Nothing to worry about. But Ethan noticed a tightness in his breathing, the way he pressed a hand to his chest as though calming a subtle ache. You need to see a doctor, Ethan murmured. Samuel offered a tired smile. I've lived through worse storms. But the deflection was too soft, too practiced, and Ethan knew it. You're not alone now, Ethan said gently. You don't have to fight everything by yourself anymore. Samuel's eyes shone with warmth and sorrow. I'm not used to someone caring what happens to me. Ethan sat beside him. Maybe it's time that changed. They stayed like that for a moment. 2 generations separated by a lifetime of silence, now sharing the same couch, the same air, the same fragile hope that something lost might still be restored. Ethan finally stood. Let me tuck Lily in, then we can talk a bit more. Samuel nodded. Of course. Ethan walked down the short hallway and gently pushed open Lily's door. She was already under her blankets, her stuffed bunny tucked beside her, her eyes wide with quiet curiosity. Daddy, yeah, sweetheart, he whispered. Is Mr. Samuel sad? Ethan smiled softly as he brushed her hair back. Yeah, he's had a hard life, but he's trying. Lily's brows knit together. We should help him, right? Ethan kissed her forehead. We're already helping. She looked relieved. Okay. As Ethan turned off the light, Lily whispered, Daddy, he smiles like you. Ethan froze. Something warm and painful pressed behind his ribs. Good night, Lily, he breathed. When he returned to the living room, Samuel was staring at the drawing Lily had given him, running his thumb across the crayon lines as if they were priceless. She's an angel, Samuel murmured. She's my whole world, Ethan said. Samuel nodded slowly. You've done a beautiful job raising her. Your father would be proud. Ethan hesitated. Do you think he'd want us to know each other? Samuel closed his eyes. Yes, he whispered. Because he deserved a father who loved him better. And you deserve family that chooses you. The words hung in the air, tender and raw. If you believe in second chances, if you believe love can still win after everything, comment, amen. Sometimes hope needs to be seen, so someone scrolling by can feel it too. Ethan took a deep breath. Samuel, I don't know what comes next. I'm not ready to call this healed, but I'm willing to try. Slowly, carefully. Samuel's face crumpled with relief. Trying is more than I deserve, more than I hoped for. Ethan placed a gentle hand on the arm of the couch. You can stay here for now, at least until we figure things out. But tomorrow, we're getting you checked at the clinic. No arguments. Samuel tried to protest, but the look in Ethan's eyes stopped him. All right, he whispered. I'll go. Their eyes met, cautious, searching, but connected in a way they hadn't been before. Not by blood alone, but by choice. Samuel shifted under the blanket. Ethan, I don't know how much time I have left. Doctors say my heart is fragile. Ethan's breath tightened. But what time I do have, Samuel continued, voice trembling. I want to spend it right. I want to know you. I want to know Lily. I want to give you whatever I can, stories, wisdom, even just company. Ethan looked down, blinking back the sudden heat in his eyes. I think we can do that, he whispered. Samuel exhaled shakily, as if a lifetime of regret eased just enough to let hope Indiana. Outside, the night had gone still. Inside, a broken family took its first step toward becoming whole. Morning sunlight crept through the blinds in thin, golden stripes. Ethan woke before the alarm, something he hadn't done in months. His first instinct was to check on Lily. She was curled up peacefully, clutching her bunny, hair spread across the pillow like a soft halo. Then he stepped quietly into the living room. Samuel was sitting upright on the couch, blanket still over his lap, staring at one of Lily's drawings pinned to the wall. The light caught the side of his face, revealing lines carved by years of struggle, but also a gentleness that hadn't been there the night before. You're up early, Ethan said softly. Samuel turned, offering a faint smile. Didn't sleep much. Too many thoughts. But good ones, for the first time in a long while. Ethan sat across from him. We should get you checked out today. The clinic opens at 9. Samuel nodded slowly. I'm ready. But then he hesitated, eyes drifting again to Lily's artwork. Ethan, he said quietly, last night, for the first time in decades, I felt like I belonged somewhere, even just for a moment. Ethan folded his hands. You do belong. But rebuilding doesn't happen in one night. We'll take this slow, okay? Samuel's eyes glistened. Slow is enough. Slow is more than I've had. Lily padded out of her room then, rubbing her eyes. When she saw Samuel awake, she brightened. Good morning, Mr. Samuel. He smiled, softer than sunrise. Good morning, sweetheart. She held something behind her back. I made you another picture. Samuel blinked. Already? She nodded and revealed a small drawing. This one, a 2 stick figure sitting on a couch, a big heart floating above them. Samuel pressed a hand to his chest. You're going to make this old heart melt. That means you like it? Lily grinned. I love it, Samuel whispered, as she climbed into Ethan's lap. Samuel looked at both of them, long, thoughtful, emotional. I wish I could have known your father, he said. I wish he'd let me fix things. Ethan nodded, the wound still tender. I wish he had too. For a moment, they shared a silence shaped by absence. Michael Carter's absence, the man who connected them yet had never lived long enough to bridge the distance. Ethan rubbed Lily's back. We can't change what happened, but we can choose what happens now. Samuel closed his eyes briefly, letting the words settle deep. After breakfast, simple toast and eggs, they got ready to leave for the clinic. Samuel took longer than expected to stand. His breathing was shallow, his steps unsteady. Ethan watched him with growing concern. Here, he said, offering his arm. Take your time. Samuel accepted the help with quiet gratitude. Outside, the morning air was crisp, filled with the scent of damp pavement from last night's rain. Ethan walked slowly with Samuel, who paused every few steps to catch his breath. Lily skipped beside them, humming a tune, unaware of the heaviness pressing on both adults. Halfway to the car, Samuel stopped. "Ethan, wait." Ethan turned. Samuel's face had gone pale, his hand gripping the railing for support. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked quickly. Samuel swallowed hard. "I need to say this before we go anywhere." Ethan steadied him. "Okay, what is it?" Samuel lifted trembling eyes to him. "These past hours, they've been the most peace I've felt in years. Whether I have 1 year left or 1 month, I need you to know something." Ethan's chest tightened. "I'm listening." Samuel took a fragile breath. "You and Lily, you've given me a reason to keep trying. To fight for whatever time I have left. To believe that family isn't lost forever. It just sometimes waits to be found." Ethan felt emotion rise in his throat. Lily looked up at Samuel, confused but sensing tenderness. "Grandpa?" she whispered, the words slipping from her like instinct. Samuel froze. Tears spilled instantly down his cheeks. "Sweetheart, you don't have to call me that." Lily shrugged softly. "But you're Daddy's grandpa. That means you're mine too, right?" Samuel covered his mouth, sobbing quietly, overwhelmed by a kind of love he'd forgotten the world still held. Ethan put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll figure this out together, okay? No rushing. No pressure. Just step by step." Samuel nodded, unable to speak. "If this moment touched your heart, don't scroll away. Leave a red heart or a message of hope. Sometimes one small sign of love is enough to lift someone who feels forgotten." They helped Samuel into the car, buckled him in, and began the drive to the clinic. The city rolled past in soft, moving colors, the world continuing as if unaware that 3 lives were being rewoven inside a rusted sedan. "Ethan," Samuel said suddenly, voice steadier now, "there's one more thing you should know." Ethan glanced at him through the rear-view mirror. "What's that?" Samuel looked out the window, eyes reflecting everything he'd lost and everything he'd unexpectedly regained. "That fun I told you about, it's not small. I wasn't just comfortable in my younger years. I was successful, very successful. Even after everything fell apart, the investments grew. I didn't know who they'd go to anymore. Until now." Ethan gripped the steering wheel. "Grandpa, I told you." "I know," Samuel cut in gently. "But this isn't payment. It isn't guilt. It's legacy. It's family. It's a chance for Lily to grow up with opportunities your father never had. A chance for you to breathe again, maybe for the first time in your life." Ethan didn't answer. He couldn't. His mind spun with disbelief, fear, gratitude, and caution all tangled together. Samuel looked at him with quiet sincerity. "I'm not asking you to accept it today. Or tomorrow. Just let it be there waiting, like I was all these years, without knowing who I was waiting for." They drove the rest of the way in silence, but it wasn't the silence of tension anymore. It was the silence of something new beginning. Life hadn't healed, but it had opened, and sometimes that's the first miracle. Before we end this journey, if this story moved you, don't leave quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the souls here who carried pain yet still chose kindness. Your one click is a way of saying, "I felt this too." Moral: kindness is never wasted. It circles back in ways we can't predict. Sometimes across miles, sometimes across generations, sometimes right back into our own trembling hands. And when broken people choose softness instead of bitterness, healing finally has a place to land.